Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is Brenna Good, and on today's video, I was originally going to be talking about Branch Davidians, but instead I decided to change the video to talking about David Koresh. Now, some of you may know who David Koresh is, others may not. Well, David Koresh is known for the Waco siege of 1993. And this video will be talking about his early life, and it will be ending with the start of the Waco siege and the aftermath. So grab a cup of coffee, your tea, a blanket, and sit right next to your fireplace and get ready for a few minutes of interesting facts. Now, David Koresh was born Vernon Wayne Howell on August 17th, 1959, in Houston, Texas. His mother was only 14 years old when she gave birth to him, and his mother's name was Bonnie Sue Clark. His father was Bobby Wayne Howell. Anyways, before David Koresh was even born, his father had met another teenage girl and abandoned Koresh and his mom. And although Koresh never met his father, his mother ended up getting together with another person who was a very violent alcoholic. In 1963, Koresh's mother ended up leaving with her boyfriend and had placed her son in the care of her mother, Earlene Clark. His mother returned when he was 7 years old, and she came with the news that she had married a carpenter named Roy Haldeman. Now, with Haldeman, she ended up having another son named Roger in 1966. Koresh really did describe his life his early childhood as lonely, but because due to his poor study skills and dyslexia, he was basically bullied for being put in special education classes, and he was nicknamed Vernie by his fellow students. Due to that, during his junior year, Koresh decided that he was just going to drop out of high school. When he was 19 years old, Koresh ended up having an illegal sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl who became pregnant. He claimed to have become a born-again Christian in the Southern Baptist Church and soon joined his mother's church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. There, Koresh ended up becoming infatuated with the pastor's daughter, and while praying for guidance, he opened his eyes and allegedly found the Bible open to Isaiah 34:16, stating that none should want for her mate. Convinced that this is a sign from God, Koresh approached the pastor and told him that God wanted him to have his daughter for a wife. The pastor ended up throwing him out, and when he continued to persist with his pursuit of the daughter, the pastor made sure that he was expelled from the congregation. Now, after that, that's when we know that David Koresh moved to Waco, Texas, where he joined the Branch Davidians. And that was in 1981. And keep in mind that the Branch Davidians are not to be confused with the original Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Church. Benjamin Roden, who died in 1978, originated the branch group in 1955 with new teachings that were not connected with the original Davidians. And because he had joined that Branch Davidians, Koresh was welcome in. He was he was allowed to play guitar and sang in the church services at the Mount Carmel Center, which was the headquarters outside of just Waco. Now, what we know is that in 1983 was the beginning of Koresh's ascent to becoming the leader of the Branch Davidians. Koresh began claiming the gift of prophecy. In a book called A Place Called Waco that came out in 1999, speculated that he had a sexual relationship with Lois Roden, the widow of Benjamin Roden and leader of the cult. Now, people started freaking out because this woman was in her late 60s. Koresh eventually began to claim that God had chosen him to father a child with Lois, who would be the chosen one. Now, Lois ended up becoming so in love with her husband that she allowed him to take leadership. Basically, not allowed, but she allowed Koresh to begin teaching his own message called the Serpent's Root, which did cause controversy in the group. Lois's older son with her husband George intended to be the group's next leader, and was considered Koresh an interloper. When Koresh announced that God had instructed him to marry Rachel Jones, who then added Koresh to her name, a period of calm ensued at the Mount Carmel Center. But it didn't last too long. It was just proven to be only temporary. In the ensuing power struggle, George Roden claimed to have the support of the majority of the cult, forcing Koresh and his group off of the property. To get them off the property, Roden and some of his security forces chased them off at gunpoint. This led Koresh and his followers, who had about 25 people in it, to camp at Palestine, Texas, 90 miles from Waco. They lived under rough conditions like in buses, tents, even abandoned trailers. During the next 2 years, Koresh started recruiting new followers, and not just in Texas, but he was able to get new followers from California, the United Kingdom, Israel, Australia, and he was even able to travel to Israel on that same day to the modern day Cyrus. Now, people said that the founder of the Davidian movement, named Victor Hotoff, wanted to be God's implement and establish a Davidic kingdom in Palestine. Koresh also wanted to be God's tool and set up the Davidic kingdom in Jerusalem, at least until 1990. He believed the place of his martyrdom might be Israel, but by 1991, he was convinced that his martyrdom would be in the U.S. instead of Israel. He said the prophecies of Daniel would be fulfilled in Waco, and that the Mount Carmel Center was the Davidic kingdom. Koresh and his followers ended up being exiled from the Palestine camp. They then went back into primitive existence. In 1986, Lois died. The exiled Branch Davidians wondered if they would ever be able to return to the Mount Carmel Center. Despite the displacement, Koresh now enjoyed the loyalty of the majority of the Branch Davidian community. By late 1987, Roden's support was in steep decline. To regain it, he challenged Koresh to a contest to raise the dead, going so far as to exhume a corpse to demonstrate his spiritual supremacy. Koresh went to the authorities to file charges against Roden for illegally exhuming a corpse, but was told he would have to show proof, such as a photograph or the corpse. Koresh seized that opportunity to seek criminal prosecution of Roden by returning to the Mount Carmel Center with 7 armed followers, allegedly attempting to get photographic proof of the exhumation. Koresh's group was discovered by Roden, and a gunfight broke out. When the sheriff arrived, Roden had already suffered a minor gunshot wound and was pinned down behind a tree. As a result of the incident, Koresh and his followers were charged with attempted murder. At the trial, Koresh explained that he went to the Mount Carmel Center to uncover evidence of criminal disturbance of a corpse by Roden. Koresh's followers were acquitted, and in Koresh's case, a mistrial was declared. In 1989, Roden ended up murdering Wayman Del Adair with an axe blow to the skull after Adair stated his belief that he himself was the true Messiah. This made Roden insane, and thus he was judged as insane and confined to a psychiatric hospital in Big Springs, Texas. Since Roden owed thousands of dollars in unpaid taxes on the Mount Carmel Center, Koresh and his followers were able to raise the money and reclaim the property. Roden continued to harass the Koresh faction by filing legal papers while in prison. When Koresh and his followers reclaimed the Mount Carmel Center, they discovered that tenants who had rented for Roden had left behind a meth lab, which Koresh reported to local police department and asked to have removed. In May 1990, on the 15th, Koresh decided to go to the California State Superior Court to legally change to David Koresh. Now again, remember his name is Vernon Howell. He wanted to change his name legally for publicity and business purposes to David Koresh. On August 28, 1990, Judge Robert Martinez granted the petition. Koresh is the biblical name of Cyrus the Great, a Persian king, who was named a Messiah for freeing Jews during the Babylonian captivity. His first name, David, symbolized a lineage directly to the biblical King David, from whom the new Messiah would descend. By taking the name David Koresh, he was professing himself to be the spiritual descendant of King David, a messianic figure carrying out a divinely commissioned errand. Not too long after that, there was allegations of child abuse within the property of Carmel Center. Koresh was alleged to have been involved in multiple incidents of physical and sexual abuse of children. His indoctrination of the House of David did lead to marriages with both married and single women in the Branch Davidians. This doctrine was based on a purported revelation that involved the procreation of 24 children by chosen women in the community. These 24 children were to serve as the ruling elders over the millennium after the return of Christ. These women purportedly chosen through this doctrine included at least one underage girl, Michelle Jones, who was the younger sister Koresh's legal wife, Rachel, and the daughter of lifelong Branch Davidians, Perry and Mary Bell Jones. A 6-month investigation of sexual abuse allegations by the Texas Child Protection Service in 1992 failed to turn up any evidence, possibly because the Branch Davidians concealed the spiritual marriage of Koresh to Michelle, assigning a surrogate husband to the girl for the sake of appearances. Regarding the allegations of physical abuse, the evidence is less certain. In one widely reported incident, ex-members claimed that Koresh became irritated with the cries of his son Cyrus and spanked the child so severely for several minutes on 3 consecutive visits to the child's bedroom. In a second report, a man involved in a custody battle visited the Mount Carmel Center and claimed to have seen the beating of a young boy with a stick. Finally, the FBI's justification for forcing an end to the 51-day standoff was predicted on the charge that Koresh was abusing children inside the Mount Carmel Center. Allegations have been made that he had fathered children with underage girls in the Branch Davidians. In the hours that followed the deadly conflagration, Attorney General Janet Reno told reporters, "We had specific information that babies were being beaten." However, FBI Director William Sessions publicly denied the charge and told reporters that they had no such information about child abuse inside the Mount Carmel Center. A careful examination of the other child abuse charges found that the evidence to be weak and ambiguous, casting doubt on the allegations. The allegations of child abuse largely stem from the detractors and ex-members. The 1993 Justice Department report cites allegations of child sexual and physical abuse. Legal scholars point out that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms had no legal jurisdiction in the matter of the child protection, and these accounts appear to have been inserted by the ATF to inflame the case against Koresh. For example, the account of former Branch Davidian Janine Buns is reproduced in an ATF abdit. She claimed that Koresh had fathered at least 15 children with various women and girls, and that she had personally delivered 7 of these infants. Buns also claims that Koresh had annulled all marriages of couples who joined the group and had exclusive sexual access to the women and girls. In his book, James Tabor states that on a videotape that was sent out of the compound during the siege, Koresh acknowledged that he had fathered more than 12 children by several wives. On March 3, 1993, during negotiations to secure the release of the remaining children, Koresh advised hostage negotiators that "my children are different from those others," referring to his direct lineage versus those children he had previously released. Now here comes the raid and the siege of the compound. Now I must warn you, this story is upsetting due to the fact that there is the loss of life of children in it too. Now, the Waco siege began on February 28, 1993, when the ATF raided Mount Carmel Center. The ensuing gun battle resulted in the deaths of 4 ATF agents and 6 Branch Davidians. Shortly after the initial raid, the FBI hostage rescue team took command of the federal operation, because the FBI has jurisdictions over incidents involving the deaths of federal agents. The negotiation team established contact with Koresh inside the compound, communicating over the next 51 days, included telephone exchanges with various FBI negotiators. Koresh himself had been seriously injured by a gunshot. As the standoff continued, his closest male associates and he negotiated delays so that he could possibly write religious documents, which he said he needed to complete before his surrender. Koresh's conversations with the negotiators were dense, and they also included biblical imagery. The FBI negotiators treated the situation as more of a hostage crisis than just a regular raid. The siege of the Mount Carmel Center ended on April 19, 1993, when U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno approved recommendations of FBI officials to proceed with the final advancement in which the Branch Davidians would be removed from Mount Carmel Center by force. In an attempt to flush Koresh out of the stronghold, the FBI resorted to pumping CS gas into the compound with the aid of a M728 combat engineer vehicle, which was equipped with a battering ram. In the course of the advance, the Mount Carmel center ended up catching fire. Uh, it's due to that, it's still being disputed on the circumstances of how that happened. Which, if you ask me, I believe it was due to the truck maybe leaking glass or hitting something that had gas leaking out and there was a spark. But anyways, barricaded inside the building, 79 Branch Davidians perished in the ensuing blaze. 21 of these victims were children under the age of 16. According to the FBI, Steve Schneider, who was Koresh's right-hand man, who probably realized that he was dealing with a fraud, shot and killed Koresh and then committed suicide with the same gun. A second account gave a totally different story. Koresh, then 33, died of a gunshot wound to the head during the course of the fire. No one knows who killed him or if he killed himself. The medical examiner reported 20 people, including 5 children under the age of 14, had been shot and a 3-year-old had been stabbed in the chest. In the aftermath, Koresh was buried at Memorial Park Cemetery in Tyler, Texas, in the Last Supper section of the cemetery. In 2004, Zach Bagans, everybody knows who Zach Bagans is, bought Koresh's 1968 Chevrolet Camaro, which was damaged during the raid, but it was sold for $37,000 at the auction. Several of Koresh's albums were released, including Voice of Fire in 1994. Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols cited the Waco siege as their motivation for the Oklahoma City bombing of April 19, 1995, which was timed to coincide with the second anniversary of the Waco assault. There had been 4 documentaries about the siege, including different versions of Waco, The Rules of Engagement, Waco, A New Revelation, Waco, The Big Lie, and Waco, Madman or Messiah. In 2018, BBC Radio 5 Live created a radio broadcast titled The End of Days, which was about the death and life of Koresh and his involvement in the Waco siege. Paramount ended up doing a miniseries of the Waco siege in 2018. Tyler Kish, who's an amazing actor, went on to play David Koresh. The Branch Davidians is still continued today, and both groups, it had been split into 2 different groups with different, revelations with each group, but the only thing the 2 groups have today is that they're still waiting for the end of times. Thank you so much for sitting here and enjoying my video. I apologize for the many mispronunciations I had did in the video, but anyways, I hope you all enjoyed it though. I hope if kids watch this, I hope you know that you can ask your parents about the Waco siege. If not, I suggest you guys can go ahead and just look it up. It's pretty sad. Yeah, this will be my last video again for a while, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Go to the About section of this video and you'll see my Instagram name, Brenna Victoria 2020. Other than that, I hope you guys have an amazing day, amazing afternoon, or an amazing night. Have a good week or weekend, depending on when you watch this. And stay safe. Have a good day. Bye.